All right. Hello, fellow Blue is the New White listeners. Welcome back to another recap episode. So before you listen to that last episode, if you haven't listened to it yet and you're wondering whether or not you should, I'm happy to have the opportunity to put something shorter out like this, to help you understand whether or not you should spend an hour of your time listening to this last episode. And I'm going to tell you right now, out the gate, do it. Because this last guest that we had, his name's Joel Worthington. And he is the president of Mr. Electric. All right, you guys have probably seen Mr. Electric trucks driving around in your neighborhood. It's actually a Neighborly company. The company Neighborly bought, I believe, Mr. Electric, and I think that's how that worked. But anyway, 250 franchise locations across the U.S. 250, which is just amazing if you think about it. That is a ton of locations. That is a big franchise and right up our alley, right in the skilled trades, And I actually met Joel at the XOI Vision Conference in Nashville back in November. I was giving a keynote out there, and he was doing the other keynote. And as soon as I heard it, right, as soon as I heard him talk and heard the passion bleed through about what his superpower is, which I'll get to in just a second, I knew that I had to have him on the show. Not just for me, because I wanted to learn more, but for you guys, for the audience, because he's got so much insight and wisdom to add, especially to this blue-collar business, crowd, whether you own a big business or a little business, or you're thinking about starting a business, this is incredible practical advice on such an important topic. So his superpower is leadership.
I'm going to call it leadership, and I'll give a brief what that means as a superpower. The biggest power we have and the biggest opportunities, the greatest ideas, the greatest resource we have is others. And so being able to develop others, being able to learn to deal with people through all of the ups and downs, all of the different scenarios that we go through, whether it's our employees or customers or whoever that is. And I can talk about that a little bit more, but two of the biggest ones are character and competency. Okay, so as a leader, people have to trust us because we're trustworthy. And those are things like discipline, consistency, obviously honesty and truthfulness, transparency, not spinning things, respect. There's so many in there, but the way that we treat people, and can they trust us? So developing trust is key.
It's a broad topic. I know you've probably read a billion books on leadership, but what I really love this conversation because there's a couple of things he said. Number one, he said that other people are our greatest resource. We cannot possibly build what we want to build, pursue what we want to pursue, achieve what we want to achieve as entrepreneurs and business owners without the help of other people, right? So it's up to us to employ these people. It's up to us to lead these people. It's up to us to inspire these people. It's up to us to give these people purpose and help them help us. So this was a really great conversation. What I loved most about it, I think, is the practicality behind the advice that he gave, right? If you're like me, you've read a million leadership books, right? You've been to a bunch of seminars, you've talked to a lot of people probably, and there's always an angle. There's always a silver bullet in the leadership space. You got to be empathetic, or you've got to be driven, or you've got to be a visionary, or you have to ask the right questions, or you have to balance compassion and candor. I mean, there's all of these things, soft skill things that you got to do. But one of the very first things that Joel said is you got to be competent in whatever it is that you're asked to be an expert in, right? You have got to be competent in that field. You have to understand what it is that you're doing, so you can instill that in other people, and other people can have confidence that you can not only lead, but you can actually conceptualize and where you're going as a business and as a company and how you're going to take people with there. So anyway, it's just really practical advice, which I thought was a breath of fresh air. I ask everybody who is in the leadership space the same question. I say, are leaders born or are they made? And I get a lot of answers to this question. I think that there's a healthy mix of people who think that leaders are born versus made. And there was no stuttering with Joel, though. He came right out and he said that leaders are made. 100% leaders are made. We are all born, with the same capacity, the same resource. Obviously there's exceptions physically, mentally, and otherwise, but for all intents and purposes, we're talking about people who are capable of doing this kind of stuff, right? So we are born with these capacities, and we're a product of our environment, right? We're a product of our upbringing. We can be taught how to lead. Yes, of course, there are personality traits out there that contribute to whether or not, it's easier or harder for us to learn these things, but ultimately we still have to learn them, right? So that I thought was a really interesting angle. Also, he said that leaders get results. This is another thing that isn't found in a lot of the books, right? How is leadership measured, I think was the question, right? Or how do we know, or what is leadership, right? Leadership is getting results. And actually, here, I have the question right here. How do you gauge how well you're doing it, right? How do you gauge how well you're leading? Because it's one of those things, it's not like you've got a meter up there that's like, oh, yeah, you're doing good today, or you're not doing good today, or, that's not it, right? How do you gauge this? And there's also not a metric. You're 60% good at leading, but that doesn't exist. So he said two things. Number one, leaders get results. They openly get results. So whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, if you're not accomplishing it, it falls on you, right? And maybe you need to go back and look at your leadership ability, hone your skills a little bit more, because if you're not getting results, that's an indication that you're not leading well, which I thought was great, right? And then also ask. Right? This is another thing that you don't find in the books, is just ask. How am I doing? Are you inspired? Do you understand what's expected of you? Do you feel like you can come to me? These are all things, that help determine whether or not you're a good leader, and help you gauge that. Right. And so we talk a lot about that. And then I like what he said at the end. There's a couple of things here. He said that people have to believe in you first before they'll believe in your company. Right. And this is really, really important, because we are all taught, hey, you got to have the mission, the vision, the values, right? You've got to, that's what is going to make people, fit into the culture and row in the same direction, but there's a missing piece to that, guys. And it is 100%. They've got to believe in you before they'll believe in anything that you say. So I want you to keep that in mind. Your people need to believe in you before they'll believe in anything that you say. Okay. And then lastly, we talk a little bit about how leadership is influence. It's just influence. It doesn't mean that you got to lead from the top or the side or the bottom or whatever. You can lead from any position that you're in any capacity that you're in. It's just how well you influence other people. But then Joel puts a spin on it, and he says, leadership is influence that leads to achievement. That leads to achievement. Which I thought was really great. That was a really great expansion on Maxwell's leadership as influence, right? Because that leads to achievement piece is what we're all after. That's the measurement. That's what we want to do. We want to achieve. We want to succeed. That's the whole reason we're talking about leadership to begin with. That's the whole reason we have this podcast. That's the whole reason I talk to these people, right? Is because we want to know how to achieve results in what we do every day. So really great episode, really, really compelling episode. You can hear Joel's passion come through in what he says and how he leads. So definitely don't miss this one. Check it out. If you have any other ideas or suggestions, for guests on the show, please send them my way. I'd love to talk to whoever you think could add value to me, my audience, which is you, and all of that. So don't be a stranger. Also chime in. Listen, this isn't a one-way conversation. If I'm not doing something well, or if I'm not delivering in a capacity that you think that I can, call me out on it, man. I want to hear from you guys. Let's make this shit better. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. Make sure you tune in next week and catch this episode. All right, see you guys.